Not on yet, right? Oh, you are?
We're on Daf Lamed Tesam with Beis. Omar Mar. Lehem Imrani in Takun al Bishtar. So the case was, they asked Rebbe, what happens if a person says Nisiyashti pleni avdi? I've given up hope about my evet. So what's the din? His it's like basically declaring your evet ownerless. Does he go free? Does he not go free? And Rebbe said that you have to give him a star. So the Gemara asks, well, Tanya, didn't we say in a different case, when a person is makdish his evet, he sanctifies his evet? We had it on Maseches. Rebbe Aimimer, that the Gizber is allowed, the evet is allowed to give his money to the Gizber. Tanakama said the Gizber sells him to someone else who frees him, who receives the money from the evet. And Rebbe says even from the Gizber himself, you're allowed to sell him. It looks like a sale, it's fine. It's not a problem. It's not like a shichur, it's like a sale. So we see that Rebbe holds you're allowed to use money to free an evet. So what's the difference? This is what Rebbe is saying. You could use money or a star. V'hai pokale kaspet. In a case where he says Nisiyashti, he no longer could receive money from him because he took off the entire his monetary ownership over him, and all that remains is the isser. In order to take off the isser, you have to have the star. So it's interesting. Like on the one hand, if he would receive money from him, then he would entirely go free. If he'd receive a star, he would entirely go free. If he declares him ownerless, he loses his monetary ability. Can't receive money from him anymore, but only star. I guess ownerless is not the same as receiving money. If the evet pays him, it's better than just declaring ownerless. Declaring ownerless, you only do 90%. You only go 90% of the way, but there's still the isser that remains. Which l'chera would be you wouldn't a regular person wouldn't say. I mean, if you just think, oh, ownerless, it's as if you're taking off all your monetary claim. No, taking off your monetary claim, but not the isser. So therefore, he's still the only way to free him in such a case without receiving money is through shtar. This is not like a different Tana. The Tana Shimon says in the name of Rabbi Kiva that you might think that you could free a slave with money, that he could pay you money just like shtar. We're talking about a shifcha charufa. She's a half a slave, and if you're with her, you get mal. If a man is with her, he has to bring a carbon. He gets malchus. He gets malchus and he gets malchus plus he's gonna get a carbon oshim. He has to bring a carbon oshim. 1 second, sorry. I think
I'm sorry, I just said somebody was at the door. So where are you now? I missed the.
Oh, okay. You missed all my chedushim. No, I'm joking.
I was at that if he's mityayish for a person, he still has to give him a shtar, unlike money. And
oh, okay. So the Gemara. Oh, we'll start again from V'lafuki mehaitani. You see V'lafuki? V'lafuki mehaitana.
Where is that? What line is that?
That's
thank you.
6 lines on the bottom of the skinny lines.
Where are we, David?
I got it. Okay.
V'lafuki mehaitana, 6 lines on the bottom of the skinny lines on 39b. Lamed Tesam with base.
Thank you. Baruch Hashem, I can hear now. I have my headphones on.
Oh, okay. Very good.
You know that my hearing's broken, very bad, and Baruch doesn't have a very good speaker. It's not loud enough for me.
Oh, so now you're using headphones. That's smart. It's really smart.
Exactly. I'm using headphones with my cell.
So, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're saying how many lines from the bottom?
6 from the bottom of the skinny lines.
1, 2, 3, 4. I've got it. Baruch Hashem.
This excludes from the Tana that holds you can't use money to free a slave. The Tana, well, you might think that you could free a slave if she pays you money. How does she get money? Someone gives her a gift and condition that the owner doesn't have any ownership of the money. Let me just turn off the microphone because I hear
Yeah,
the
but can you put them on mute because it's very loud,
I just turned it off, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was David sitting in a different spot. Okay, like this. So the pasuk says that if a person's with a shifcha charufa, it says haftei lo niftas, she's half free because her partner freed her. Oy chufasha lo nitan lo. Haftei lo niftas, oy chufsha lo nitan lo. So the way we translate the pasuk is she's half free. One of the partners freed her, or her freedom wasn't given to her with shtar completely. Because tia, they're not going to die. She's going to get malchus and he brings a karban asham. She gets a malchus and he brings a karban asham. Lo yumsu ki lo chufsha. So the pasuk repeats itself. Lo yumsu ki lo chufsha. So why does it only repeat the part of ki lo chufsha? To teach you that she's not going to be if she wouldn't be freed at all, there wouldn't be a karban asham. The person wouldn't even have to bring karban asham. So it says freed to teach you that she's the money, at least if the owner accepts payment, I'll call upon him at the very least. A person who sleeps with her will have to bring a karban asham, but it doesn't mean that she'll be fully free. Full freedom is only the way that pasuk ends, kiloi chufsha, with a shtar. Full freedom is only with a shtar. Money only partially frees her to make a person who sleeps with her be chayav a karban asham. Full freedom again is with a shtar. I'm repeating myself too much, and that is the opinion of Reb Shimon and the name Rabbi Akiva. Rebbe disagrees. I don't know how he translates this pasuk. It doesn't say in the Gemara, but Rebbe will say you could have full freedom with money. It's just that if you declare ownerless, you don't get full freedom. But if you accept money, there is full freedom. Why does the pasuk here end with kiloi chufsha? I don't know. Maybe he holds kiloi chufsha is including both money and shtar. I'm not sure. That you can't get freed with money. A slave can't free him or herself with money. Rav Yosef Bar Chama, I guess his brother maybe, said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. They both, Rami Bar Chama is the name of Rav Nachman, Rav Yosef Bar Chama is the name of Rabbi Yechanan, and says the halacha is not like Rabbi Shimon. The halacha is like Rabbi that you could get freed with money. Okay. Ashkech Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Rava Bar Shilta or Rava Bar Shilas. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak found Rava Bar Shilas to have a koya pischa devei tefillah. He was by the entrance of the house of prayer. Very interesting that it says this detail. Omer lei halacha or in halacha. Said, is halacha like Reb Shimon or not? Could a slave get freed with money or not? Omer lei ani yomer in halacha. I hold the halacha is not like Reb Shimon. He could get freed with money. Rabbana dosim mechuza amri. The chachamim who come from mechuza say that Reb Zeh b'shmei that Reb Nachman halacha. That Reb Zeh said in the name of Reb Nachman. We already had Rami Bar Chama the name of Reb Nachman that halacha. So Reb Zeh also says in the name of Reb Nachman. The Chacham from Mechuzah say that Reb Zayda says in the name of Rav Nachman that the halacha is like Reb Shimon, that you cannot free yourself with money. You become partially free, but you don't become fully free. You can't have normal kedushin and so on. You have to have a shtar.
How much money are we talking about, David?
Whatever the value of the servant is, I guess whatever the master wants to receive.
So it could be quite an expensive proposition. Because we learned the other day, right, that I forget which rabbi it was, freed a slave to have a minyan, to have
Rabbi Eliezer, yeah.
So he probably paid a lot of money.
No, he freed him for free.
Yes.
He didn't take money. He just needed a minyan.
But I thought you have to pay though to free the slave.
That's one of the ways to get free, but the servant could just free him with writing a shtar. The master could free him by writing a shtar. Now Shmuel says you could declare ownerless, and you don't even need a shtar. So the Gemara goes on. So so Reb Zeta says that the halacha is like Reb Shimon, money you cannot free with money. We have different opinions. They also the surah. When I came to surah, this is Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says when I came. No, Rav Bar Shila said when I came to surah, Ashkachti the Reb Barovin. I found Reb Barovin. Amri le easy gufa dov do hechiave. Tell me, beloved. I think easy means beloved. I'm not sure. What happened? Amri dahu amsa. In other words, how did the Chachamim in Mechuzah say the name of Zeta and the name of Nachman that the halacha is like Reb Shimon that you can't free yourself with money? I can't right now. I'm sorry. I'm in the middle of a shir. You're gonna have to wait.
When are you finished the
A few minutes. Omer li dahi amsa deheva mora shchiv mera. There was a maidservant that her master was a shchiv mera. Asya bachya kamei. She came crying in front of her master. She found that she got him at a moment of weakness. She was a maidservant, and he was on his deathbed. So she came crying in front of him. She told him, how much longer am I going to be talking in third person? How much longer is this woman going to have to be enslaved? He took his hat and he put it on her. Acquire this and acquire yourself. Come together. So they thought it means chalipin, right? That you lift it up and there's chalipin. Also the committed of Nachman, they went in front of Rav Nachman. Chalipin means you lift up a gartel, you lift up an object, and then you acquire it. So they went in front of Rav Nachman to ask what's a din. Maybe the urshim, maybe the heirs. They went in front of Rav Nachman. He told them it's nothing. Person who was watching thought that it's because the halacha is like Reb Shimon. They thought because the halacha is like Reb Shimon, that what does Reb Shimon say? You don't acquire yourself. You can't become fully free with money. You need a shtar. In other words, you become halfway free. You're no longer under the ownership of the master, but you're also not considered a ben chayrin until you have a shtar. So that's what they thought it was. She's no longer enslaved, but she's not totally free either. There's still Isser that remains, similar to what Rebbe said about Hefker. It's not true. The reason why she didn't become free is she didn't become free at all. Because he was doing Chalipin, you need to use the Kalim of the Koina, of the Makan. You have to have the Kalim of the Koina. It had to have been her garment in order for it to work, the Chalipin. It was his hat, so that's why it didn't work.
But David, she owns nothing, so she has no anything that she can give him.
Right. So you'd have to have somebody give her a garment al manas on condition that her master doesn't have an ownership in it, and then she'll be able to use it for chalipin, or to give her money to buy herself. But for him to give her his hat, that's not going to work.
Did you say she's no longer a slave?
No, that's what they thought. They thought she's no longer a slave, but she's also not free. Really, she was still a slave because the kinyan didn't work in the first place, because it was his hat. There's many people who say one after the other, one in the name of the other, that Allah is like Reb Shimon, that you cannot acquire yourself with money. Below, he says the Gemara, ain't Allah like Reb Shimon. The Allah is not like Reb Shimon. You could acquire yourself with money. Okay. So here we see a lesson. Like they were so sure that Rav Nachman held the halacha is like Rav Shimon. It really had nothing to do with that. It was because of a different reason. You have to be very careful. What if you have an eved? So this is a different teaching. We're moving on to a different subject, sort of. Reb Zeta says the name of Rav Chinina and Rav Ashi and the name of Rebbe. If you have an eved who marries Bascherd in front of his Rebbe, in front of his master, you go free. Rashi explains, what is that? If he hadn't freed him, he wouldn't have allowed him. Must be that he freed him already. Must be. It's enough for proof that he wouldn't have allowed him to marry a Bascherd.
Take the other middle finger and put it.
You have such a Masoira in the name of Rebbe, says Rashi. And I teach somebody who writes Ashtar Edison, he's betrothing her. He's betrothing his maidservant. According to the Mayor Mekudeshes, that already that star alone is your star shikhr. It's also your document of freedom. And according to the Chacham Mene Mekudeshes, it's not enough. It's not enough. So the Gemara answers this is different. We'll see later on Rabbi Barshila teaches that when the Eved is wearing tefillin in front of his master, it's if the master himself put the tefillin on the Eved. His master married him into a wife. So it's a raya that he had freedom before. Not that this act of marrying him off is the act of freedom. It must be that he had already been free before. Mashiach, in the case of the Shtar, Edison, the question is that document alone enough to free him or not? Now, why is not enough? Why is it not enough to also with the Shtar Edison to say that alone proves that he had already freedom before? I guess we know in that case that he hadn't freedom before, and the question is the Shtar Edison the freedom? And that's the Machlekes in Rameiracham. But in the case where he marries him off, it's a different story.
Marries who off?
If he marries a slave off to a free woman, that's proved that before he had already freed a slave.
Uh-huh.
So the Gemara asks, so this is the question that I was mentioning. Is there something that for a servant he's not going to do an Isser? When he's marrying off a servant, it's proof that he had already freed him. For him, however, when he's marrying his shifcha, he's going to do an Isser. It should also be proof that before he had freed her. He clearly thinks, from his wording, that this alone, the Kedushin alone, the document of Edison alone is her freedom. Not that he had already done it before. We know that because he said, according to Abimer, also is enough to be Meshacher, to free. According to Chum, it's not enough to free. We're going into this case. That if you have an Eved who puts tefillin on his rabbi in front of his rabbi Yotzel Chedes, he goes free. So Meisvei, we have a question. If his rebbe borrowed from him or made him an apetrepis, if his master borrowed from him or he made him an apetrepis, like a person in charge of the estate on his property, or he put tefillin in front of his rebbe, or he read 3 psukim in basic Knesses in the shoulder, he doesn't go free. Talking about when his master put the tefillin on him, that's a different story. Okay. Kiyoso, we'll do a couple more cases, and unfortunately I have to go. Kiyoso Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael, he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Misha Amar B'Shas Misosei, somebody who says during the time of his death, that the maid so-and-so, the maidservant, please don't enslave her after my death. We force the Yershim. It's a mitzvah l'kayim divrei hames. You have to fulfill the words of the mess of the dead person. So we write the Yershim have to write for her star shikhr. Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Absi said in front of him, "Are you not moide?" Is it l'chayda? It means al yishtabduba, don't make her work hard. But it doesn't mean that her children won't be slaves, for example. So why do you say to write for her star shikhr? Why don't we say just you're not allowed to make her work, but any children she'll have should still remain avadim? That was their question on Rabbi. I think on Rabbi Yochanan.
How could there be a question? If she goes free, do her not children automatically go free because they're from her?
So Rashi explains, al yishtabdu doesn't mean to be meshacher. Maybe he was never saying to free her. He was just saying don't make her work hard. But who says the master wanted the Valdes to not be slaves? So they're arguing and they're saying that you should say that we shouldn't free her. Just don't make her work hard.
Says that in the Steinsaltz as well. The
Uh-huh.
master meant only that his heirs should not subjugate her excessively, did not intend to free her.
Yeah.
And
He also,
yeah.
yeah, he also, yeah, I'm coming. He also Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Misham b'shas misas l'ploinis kivchasi kodesh ruach asas aliyas ala kodesh ruach. Somebody says she did good for me, do good for her. Koifenes yarshim leisin la kodesh ruach. We force the yarshim. So according to him, Rabbi Yochanan said that it was talking about something else. If he says kodesh ruach, make her happy. And Rashi explains you have to do something that'll make her happy. If the only thing that'll make her happy is her freedom, you have to free her. Depends on what will make her happy. Okay, unfortunately, I have to stop.
Well, thank you very much.